This is Reasons to be Mindful, a podcast about everyday people who practice some form of mindfulness or meditation to make life easier and more enjoyable.
I'm not evangelical about meditation in general, but I do think that to some extent everybody could benefit. It's just those usual everyday things that clutter our mind that if you just do a little bit of housekeeping on a regular basis, I believe we could all benefit.
I'm your host, Jen Hill, founder of Right Brain Liaisons, and I'm interested in how people keep their mind healthy, happy, and resilient to the unavoidable challenges of being human. In today's episode, you'll hear from David Pyatt, a business and marketing consultant, dad and partner, as he shares his story of learning to meditate to help him manage a busy and reactive mind and negotiate a particularly challenging period of life. I began by asking David what brought him to meditation.
I've sort of kept an eye on what successful people might be doing habitually. So just through reading, one of the common things I kept coming across was the fact that people who are successful, and I don't necessarily just mean financially, quite often this is a common theme that they meditate. So it was always on my list of things to do for many years, and occasionally I would try different things and sort of run out of steam. Probably in the early days, the most successful approach for me was guided meditation for relaxation. That had some real practical application for me. And again, I would run hot and cold. And I actually met somebody who I immediately clicked with. It was actually a dad on Saturday morning sports. And he had clearly had this really sort of busy, stressful corporate life. And he was just this really relaxed, engaged individual. And when we talked, I felt like he was really present. And so we struck up a friendship. And as we got to know each other, he explained that meditation was a huge part of his life. And he's gone very, very deep into the practice for many, many years. And as you get to know people, they tend to want to share the positive things in their life. And he repeatedly would suggest that I learn how to meditate, which was a lovely thought. And I had all of the good intentions, but none of the actual motivation to do that. There came a point in my life when I was continuing to meet this guy at Saturday morning sports, and my life was getting particularly complicated. And again, he said, there's absolutely going to be some benefit. It probably was a couple of years even that I just procrastinated or just didn't bother to take that step. But eventually, the entire family, we all agreed that we would go and learn how to meditate. So did a course. And for me personally, it was almost like flicking a switch. Even from day one, I felt the benefit. And the fact that the whole family had done that, the whole mood around the house was different from day one. So over the coming weeks, as our practice developed, our skills developed, I felt it was something for me. That was 3+ years ago, and I would now class myself as a meditator, and I practice daily. And if stuff's really complicated, twice a day I would meditate.
Can you just elaborate a little bit more on the difference in how you felt when you started meditating?
Yeah, so our particular situation was that my wife was very ill with cancer. So and there were multiple periods where treatment was having benefit. There would be a period of wellness, and then there would be repeated times when something new or challenging would crop up. So home life was this real roller coaster. And what became the norm for me was just this particularly heightened level of anticipation. I guess it's clearly a stress level. So at all stages, even on a good day, I was feeling like I was never that far away from some sort of reaction. What happened immediately, and I sort of mentioned this earlier, even from day one of just doing the first session of the course was from that point onwards, I felt like at least one point in the day, things were grounded and at a point where I was a long way away from feeling needing to respond urgently to anything at all. And I think that was the most immediate benefit I could see. And I could see that in the rest of the family. So for one point of each day, everybody was just that little bit calmer, more relaxed, more just aware. It brings forward the thought mindfulness without being jargon. That's genuinely what it was. I was sort of more aware of sounds around me, weather, and the like. So for me, there was a point in the day where I felt there was some peace and an element of relaxation. Even when you're not in an absolute crisis situation, life builds up. Stuff goes on, whether it's relationship stuff, career stuff, financial. These things can still build up in a day. I feel heart rate go down, a quietness of my mind, awareness of more things around, an ability to focus. Sometimes my mind gets very full of stuff, and it just helps me prioritize what do I need to do, what's most important, really simple things like this. They are the benefits that I feel I get every day, whether it be in a crisis situation or just everyday life. For me personally, it's not just about being calm. I do think it's genuinely had a significant impact on my mental health generally, for a couple of reasons probably. One is that I get the physical and mental benefit from the stillness that meditation brings. But also I feel like I have a go-to solution. So if it's a really tough day and I know that later in the day I can sit down and meditate and I will get to a different place where I can reevaluate, look at things with more clarity rather than being caught up in the vortex of whatever this thing is that's going on. So it is absolutely something that I rely on.
And in those moments, do you have a go-to technique?
Yeah, I do. So for me, I do have quite physical responses to stressful situations sometimes. So for me, literally grounding my feet on the ground, definitely focusing on breathing. Let's say, look, I've overreacted to a particular situation. I've got angry about something. What would I do? I would probably excuse myself from the situation, get some space. First of all, I would get myself down to a point where I was at least sitting comfortably, as I said, with my feet grounded, and I would probably just take a few moments. It's not that I would necessarily have time to do a full meditation session, but because of my daily practice, I sort of know how to get myself to a point of some stillness and calmness.
You're listening to Reasons to be Mindful, a podcast for people interested in bringing more mindfulness, i.e. presence, into daily life. Earlier you mentioned the man who was recommending meditation to you was quite relaxed and engaged.
Yeah.
Whilst we do often meditate on our own, have you noticed that it has in any way changed how you're able to engage or relate to other people?
Yeah, I do. I think by having the extra space sort of decluttered my mind, that there is more space for others and to be present. I can also probably more aware of other people's stress levels, tension levels. Maybe perhaps I'm a little bit more sensitive to that. You know, I was saying earlier, it's the sound of the birds, it's the breeze, it's how blue the sky is. Just as there's more space in my head to notice those everyday things, I think there's also more space for me to be aware of others and how they're doing.
Have you noticed any obvious difference in your inner resilience, your ability to navigate challenges, change and threat?
Yeah, absolutely. So that there have been times where busyness has got in the way of my meditation practice. And there have been times when it has been, I haven't meditated daily. And it's literally, for me, I can feel the build-up, and the actual world situation hasn't necessarily changed over those 3 or 4 days, but my ability to deal with what that situation is has changed. So absolutely, from my perspective and my personal experience, resilience is one of the greatest benefits. Also, the ability to look at all of that stuff that needs to be done, or all of those things in the world that could be a threat or danger, and be able to prioritize those into what's actually a danger. Is it a tiger? Is it a shadow? I think that's been very helpful. So for me, my meditation absolutely supports resilience. I've got a general hunch that it has some positive impact on my general health. I've been through some stressful times as a meditator, and just feel that I've come through physically very well. And I certainly know in the past that for me personally, stressful times usually meant sniffles, colds, and the like. I don't consider meditation to be any sort of a silver bullet or magic. It's literally so practical for me that if I do it, and I do it on a regular basis, I get the benefit. It's a process for me. It's a very real and practical thing. There's nothing airy-fairy or soft about this for me. It's a very practical tool. Just like if you exercise, you get benefit. If you eat better, there are benefits. For me, this is just another one of those lifestyle things that I know absolutely rewards me by doing it. If anyone's considering it, at least just give it a try. Not all techniques are for all people, but I would absolutely just get started. I think many of us would relate to the sort of fear of getting it wrong, or not being good at it, or something like that. And I can absolutely reassure people is when they do find the process that works for them, it will be effortless. Even though I do meditate alone, it's not always. I have really, really enjoyed, for example, the sessions that I've done with you, Jen, in a group situation. So there is a different dynamic to group meditation. I do enjoy the guided process as well. So even though my daily practice is solitary, there's a place for all sorts of different approaches and ways of meditating. Meditation helps me focus and at least get to that grounded position once a day. Yeah, in times like we're living in now, I have no intention of doing anything other than meditating more.
That's it for today's episode. A huge thank you to our guest David Pyatt for his time and generous sharing of personal stories in case they help or inspire others. And another huge thanks to you, dear listener, for listening. You can find links to David's 2 businesses in the podcast description, as well as links to a guided meditation for relaxation and a short exercise to help calm and recenter yourself in the heat of the moment. Join us next week when we'll talk with Kathy Coots about how mindfulness helped her through a relationship breakdown and on to discover inner contentment. This podcast is not a substitute for professional medical advice. You can visit my website, rightbrainliaisons.com, if you're interested in learning more about mindfulness or meditation, or are interested in one-on-one coaching or joining one of my classes or groups. Subscribe to the podcast, join us on social media, and rate and review the podcast to help us spread the word. Thanks again for listening. Have a great week, and bye for now.